Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And today I want to share with you about how governments at all levels are leading the way in embracing flexible work. So this is happening with agreement with labor unions by the US federal government, the Canada federal government, the New York City government. Flexibility, they're recognizing, is crucial for success in the modern workplace if you want to retain and recruit great employees. And given that there are so many empty spaces for employees, empty roles, unfilled vacancies, whatever you call them, in government, and they are not able to afford to pay them as much as private companies, governments need to be especially thoughtful about how to retain and recruit good employees, and they are negotiating with labor unions on how to do so. Let's talk about these. So Canada's federal government, the Public Service Alliance of Canada, which is the federal union for Canada, PSAC, and the Canadian government recently negotiated remote work arrangements. So the Canadian government agrees to review remote work on a case-by-case basis. And this moves away from a previous one-size-fits-all approach toward individualized remote work arrangements, which of course makes a lot more sense because different roles require different amounts of remote work. An accountant is going to work differently in the remote setting than someone who is in admin, or someone who is a programmer, or someone who is a social worker, whatever other roles you have in government, various reporting roles, bureaucrats. They need and require different amounts of remote work, so that's smart to do a case-by-case approach. What about the US federal government? So it seeks to balance in-person work and remote work, and it focuses on increasing in-person work where necessary and beneficial. And this approach is aligned with that case-by-case approach of the Canadian government and reflects the US government's negotiations with the American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE, the American labor union for government workers. What about New York City? So Mayor Eric Adams, he was previously very much against remote work, but he recently announced a new agreement with New York City's largest municipal union, DC 37, where non-essential employees were granted remote work starting this past June. And the Flexible Work Committee is overseeing the pilot program. So the mayor reluctantly recognized the need for flexibility because of the high vacancy rates, and if you wanted to retain employees, this was clearly a strong demand from workers, including the union. So New York City's decision sets a global precedent for work flexibility at the local level. This is why it's a necessity for organizations to embrace flexibility. Flexibility boosts employee satisfaction and morale. It's no longer a perk, it's a necessity. So negotiations with the free labor unions show that workers really value remote work and hybrid work, and companies that accommodate flexibility in organizations, municipalities, governments, that's how they can attract and retain top talent. And this is a catalyst for change for companies. The approach of these free governments to remote work is not the typical top-down, one-size-fits-all policy that companies like Starbucks, Amazon, Disney, Apple, and so many others are pursuing. Government policies serve as a bellwether for the labor market, what will happen in the future. And companies really need to take a close look at these developments, because if government is doing this, if government is more progressive than companies, that's a bad sign for companies. So this is what the private sector needs to really think about. Assess the landscape, identify positions that are friendly for remote and hybrid work, evaluate the feasibility of flexible work for these positions, use and assess the necessary tools and infrastructure that you have for them and that you need to acquire for them, and establish clear guidelines for expectations for remote and hybrid work, communication protocols and performance metrics, and procedures for how you request and approve flexible work arrangements. You also want to make sure that you think about two issues: technology and trust. Investing in technology and providing the necessary tools for people to work remotely involves things like video conferencing, secure access, cloud-based collaboration, and foster a culture of trust. You want to empower employees to manage their schedules and workloads and focus on performance, not on what they're doing at what time. Focus on open communication, feedback, and transparency, and build trust and maintain strong working relationships. Again, focusing on outcomes, not where people do things. Now, review and adapt your flexible work policy as needed. So regularly review and assess your policy, make adjustments as needed, get feedback from employees in making adjustments, and identify areas for improvement over time. As part of doing so, address potential roadblocks and improve them. What are the effects of flexibility? Now, governments lead the way in embracing flexible work. Private sector really must follow suit if it's to retain top talent. This is very clear. The benefits of flexibility include improved employee satisfaction, productivity, workplace inclusivity by including a lot of underrepresented groups who want a lot more flexibility than traditional white mainstream males, and flexible work policies enhance your internal operations and contribute to valuing work-life balance and well-being, which we very clearly see the pandemic has caused a lot more people to value work-life balance and well-being. There was a recent study by the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis which showed that people are voluntarily working less time, valuing work-life balance and well-being, and especially males, by the way, with college degrees. So if you want to attract these people who value work-life balance more, you better give them more flexibility. Now, the social impact of flexible work policies is also important. It benefits cities and local communities because it reduces traffic congestion, improves air quality, and decreases demand for office space, making cities more livable, more sustainable and resilient, creating a very nice urban environment. So flexible work policies can help address issues like gender inequality through more equal workforce participation. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you check the show and leave a review. It helps others discover the show and it helps us improve the show.